Today's video, we're going to be having a look at the DC Collectibles DC Designer Series Neal Adams. This is the Superman statue. Based on the work of one of the all-time greatest comic artists, Neal Adams, this premier Superman polyresin statue recreates the cover of Superman number 233. The detailed 12-inch tall statue, sculpted by Jonathan Matthews, features the iconic moment when the Man of Steel breaks out of his kryptonite chains in Kryptonite Nevermore, and is limited to 5,000 copies worldwide. Superman stands atop of this circular display base, which features an etched Superman logo. I really love this, especially how they painted the interior areas in the yellow, and especially the outline area of the blue, which helps the logo itself really stand out. You can see that there's two peg holes. That's going to be where his feet will attach, and we flip it around. There we go. This is out of 5,000 copies. Now you see it's AP26. It's an artist proof. That's why it says AP26. But it's out of the 5,000 limited copy releases. You can also see that there are 4 felt feet on pretty much all the outer areas. That's going to prevent scratching when you have this on display. To attach Superman, you can see he's got a longer post and a shorter post. Technically, I've found that you could actually display the statue with the base out this way, as the posts fit also in the same holes. However, you would want to have the Superman logo facing forward, and you'll line the pegs here. Just take a little bit to get the longer peg in there, and then slide it into place. And then you have the display base with the Superman logo in between his 2 legs. This statue I was really anxious to get as soon as I saw images of it online. I really love he really is one of the more classic looking designs for Superman. Not only is he in his more traditional Superman colors, as well as the inclusion of his underoos, but I think there's nothing more iconic than having Superman breaking through chains. In this case, you've got the kryptonite chains. Now, the chains are glow in the dark. So one thing I wanted to actually just talk about for a second. You have glow-in-the-dark kryptonite chains, which on paper sounds good, but if you think of anything else that's glow-in-the-dark, primarily, say for a collector, you may be collecting like a figure, for example, a figure that has glow-in-the-dark. Well, what do you normally do with that figure? Well, you may hold it up, say, for example, to a light source, and once it gets charged enough, you can turn off the lights and you can see how it lights up. A statue is a very different thing altogether, because for really this to be a successful glow-in-the-dark, you really need to have this statue near a strong enough light source. It simply can't just be a light source that you've got in the room where the statue maybe is in a detail further down. Like, you really need to have the statue near a lamp or something where light is always hitting the kryptonite chains, because really without that, the glow-in-the-dark feature seems almost pointless. I can't simply just pick up the statue, carry it over to a lamp, hold it against a lamp, then put it down, turn off the lights. No, a statue, especially this statue, this one's a little bit heavier than some of the others. I can't very well just be, if I have somebody over, for example, I want to show the statue too, I can't simply just take the statue out of the glass cabinet, walk it over to a light source, get the light to, to charge the kryptonite areas of his chains, and then put it down, turn off the lights to show what it does. So I do appreciate the fact that they did put the kryptonite chains as something that could essentially glow, but I don't see how it could be successful enough unless you have a lamp source always kind of piercing down on the chains itself, because I don't think externally, if you had a room of lights, I don't think the lights are bright enough to charge these enough that they would glow in the dark. Nonetheless, I'm going to see if I can actually get this to charge enough. We'll cut the lights and we'll see if the kryptonite chains do in fact glow in the dark. Well, with the lights cut, now I had to actually hold this guy up to a lamp. I can see that the chains do glow in the dark, however it's not unfortunately bright enough that the camera here is picking it up, but they do pulsate a really nice bright lime, almost a lime colored green. Unfortunately, I wish that the camera could have actually picked this up properly. We'll try again actually in a couple of minutes. Before we try that again though, I just want to show you some of the cool details on this particular statue. Let's start with Superman's face. Do quite like Superman's face sculpt here on this particular statue. As you can see that they've given him, first of all, a warmer flesh tone, which obviously helps the statue first and foremost because it's not an overly pale statue. It does have a couple little red, I don't know if you can see it there, some red detailing there around underneath his jawline and really around the areas of his mouth. They've added some additional red also around his eyes and around the eyebrow areas. So those are nice. They're not usually using just simply black panel outlining because I think it would be a little bit too stark on Superman here. They did, however, put outlining around his eyes, and the top area of his eye doesn't look as bad, but I don't know if it's the black lines should have been a little further up on Superman's eyes here, because it does end up looking as if he's got these bags underneath his eyes. Hopefully a closer look will describe better what I was talking about. You can see again, the red areas around his eyes don't look so bad, but this black line right here, I don't know if it's supposed to have been further up, and ultimately I think just the way it was printed, it got dropped a little further down on his eyes. But it does make his eyes look like he's got bags underneath his eyes. I would have just probably appreciated that line wasn't even there. I mean, the eyes are already outlined. The red on the black line on the top there does give the indication where you can see the side of his eye socket, kind of like where the bone is here. I don't really think the line underneath his eye was necessary at all. They just left that out. I think it would have worked a little bit better because again, like you can see, his eyes are perfectly outlined on their own. This head sculpt also benefits really well by being a great head sculpt that works well as a side profile. And side profile, you can also make out some really nice detailing here on his hair. First of all, you have the Superman curl on the front. If we just rotate the statue all the way around, you got some nice detailing here also on the back of his hair. You can see the overlapping hairs. From a build standpoint, Superman is a much stockier looking Superman, especially like in his torso. Really like his head sculpt as well as the broadness of his neck carries itself into a very boxy looking Superman, which works well again for the more Silver Age sort of design of Superman. I'm just happy then again we've got the underoos featured here as well. The chains, we'll talk a little bit more about these, even though the glow in the dark didn't work the greatest here so far in the review. I love the way that the chains have been broken away from Superman's torso. Actually, even to the point where, let me show you here. I don't know why I like this so much, but as you see, the chains have been broken away from one another, but there's one chain that's stuck right in his chest. I guess assuming that that would probably just be a flying piece, a piece that's kind of in mid-flight before it falls down. But I love that they added that, just to kind of make it look as if, you know, there's pieces and shards of the kryptonite chain that has broken, and this being one of them here. As you can see too, the kryptonite itself is a slightly translucent green. It kind of looks to me like a lime green. Wish it would glow in the dark a little bit better, mind you. The sculpting on his hands is really nicely done too. He's got this strong, like, strength in his individual fingers, clenching together to form these strong fists as he breaks himself through the kryptonite here. Now, I don't know if you can see it though, they've even sculpted the end of the thumbnail, or at least, at the very least, they painted the end of the thumbnail and favored closer to using the more reds and stuff that we saw, slight indicators in Superman's face. Use more of it in the hands, which I think works a little bit better than using just the black. So I really do like that they went that route. And of course you couldn't have Superman without his Superman cape, which is featured on the back here. Nice bright Superman logo at the top corner and the top middle section here. One thing or two things you'll probably notice about this particular cape, one of which being it's not long. Instead of the cape running closer to around his boots, the cape instead runs closer to around his knees. They've kept it short. They've also kept it very simple. There's very little individual wrinkles or folds in this section of the cape. They've kind of kept it more so to the sides. It keeps it very simple, but it keeps it working, I think, quite well for Superman's cape. Specifically as well, all of the Superman designs here are kept simple. There's very little in the way of additional shading. In fact, there's no additional shading, really. I guess Superman's hands and his head are about the only thing that has some additional coloring to it. But the blues and the reds don't have darker shades of blues or darker shades of reds added to it. That they kept it almost, again, very primary in its design. Actually, that's one of the things I really like about it. Sure, some additional shading could have gone a long way, especially bringing out some of the musculature, say in his legs, say in his torso. But I think by keeping it as clean as they did is where this statue is the most successful. Okay, so let's see if I can get this guy to glow in the dark again. So I've taken a moment, I've just kind of put him towards a light source, cut the lights, and see if we can get the kryptonite chains to glow this time. Unfortunately, once again, it's a situation where I can see it, and the camera's probably not going to be picking it up at all. It does glow. It's almost actually closer to almost a whitish sort of green. Unfortunately, though, camera's just not picking it up. Okay, so a bit disappointed that I couldn't get the kryptonite chains to glow in the dark for you guys, and take my word that the chains do glow in the dark, and they glow a nice bright, almost whitish colored green. This particular statue is going to be one of those cases where if you want the glow in the dark to work, it's obviously going to depend on whereabouts in your room you're going to be displaying the statue. If you're going to be displaying it, for example, on a tabletop right by a lamp, then of course results will vary. You'll probably get a much brighter, more successful, accomplished look than what I did over the course of this review. Equally so if you also have this, say, on a bookshelf, somewhere where there is a lamp source, or maybe if you've got some spotlights, some floodlights projecting down on the statue, you're probably going to have better results than, say, for example, if you kept this in a glass cabinet. I'm going to probably have this guy in a glass cabinet, so therefore, even if I have a lamp nearby, I don't think it'll ever absorb enough light source to give me the glow-in-the-dark features, the glow-in-the-dark option that really the statue is advertised with. I'd like to think, though, that you're probably going to be picking up a statue more so for the way it looks and less for the fact that it has a glow-in-the-dark kryptonite. Because really, at the end of the day, this is a wonderful looking statue and a representation of the Man of Steel. I like the stockiness of him. He really resonates for me. Some of the older comics that I used to grow up reading Superman, where he was a little less like slender and lean and a much more stockier superhero, which I really quite like here. They've kept the paint very simple, really relying only on the primary colors of the blues and the reds, with very, very little to no additional shading. Some additional shading some may prefer, but I actually prefer the fact that he doesn't have as much of that additional coloring. It's just the traditional Superman reds, the blues, and the yellows. The head sculpt is really good, and the only smallest, very smallest nitpick I can make about the statue is the fact that the lines underneath his eyes were a little too off, the eyeballs, that end up making Superman look like he slightly had some bags under his eyes. Other than that, I really do like the statue quite a bit, even though I can't really get the kryptonite chains to work for you guys in this review. Take my word for it, they do glow in the dark. Today, though, we were having a look at the DC Collectibles DC Designer Series Neal Adams Superman statue, which now is currently available, by the way, in comic book stores should you want to pick this guy up for yourself. If you also want to go back and have a look at some of the DC Collectible statue reviews that I've done, there's a playlist on this channel you can check out and watch at your viewing pleasure. More videos to follow, guys. As always, thanks for watching as you always do. See you guys next time.